Okay, wonderful. All right, everybody's texting me. I see it. Yes, I want to thank everyone for tuning in to a special edition of Off the Record this evening with the very special guest, Brother Amzi Muhammad. Brother Amzi, first I want to start by saying Assalamu alaikum, sir.
Wa alaikum salam, Brother Joshua. Thank you for having me, big brother. I appreciate it.
Yes, sir. I want to let everyone who I might be introducing you to a different audience I'm coming to y'all who may not know Brother Amzi. Brother Amzi is an educator, a great driller, great a Mason, a Muslim, a lot of things. But to me and my family, he was a brother, and my father, my mom send the greetings, and my siblings. Everybody has positive stories, Brother Amzi, and you always been nice to me and my family, sir.
Man, get a greeting to your family. Your father has always been a big brother, a father, a mentor to me, as well as your mom.
Praise be to Allah. Wonderful. We want to
Relay
get
your family the greetings.
Yes, sir. Mimi, walaikum salam. Mimi says walaikum salam. I mean, something like Mimi. Okay, so Brother Amzi, when did you first hear the teachings of the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad as taught by the Most Honorable Minister Farrakhan?
I first heard them I will say my sophomore year of high school at Hales Franciscan here in Chicago. Interesting thing about it, I grew up in the projects here in Chicago, the Dearborn Homes, and in several of the buildings, but one in particular where one of my best friends lived, there was a poster of the Power at Last poster, where the minister, he would have this suit and he had everybody that was behind him, policemen, firefighters, had Brother Salim as the baker. So for years growing up in the projects, going from my building to my friend's building, I would always see that poster. Yes, and I would ask my mom who he was, and she told me who he was. And so nothing ever came about it just growing up. But my sophomore year of high school, a friend of mine that I'll forever be grateful, he talked about the minister. And I think he had a button on his jacket or something of the minister. I'm like, man, that's that cat at that time. That's that cat that was on that poster. That's in the building. And he gave me a copy of Message to the Black Man. I'll backtrack. That was my junior year in high school. He gave me a copy of Message to the Black Man. And I remember my brother Shebaniah and I, we was reading through Message to the Black Man in the house. We had the Bible with us, but I had to give him the book back. And after that, my senior year of high school at Kenwood Academy, I was working at this bookstore in Hyde Park called Freedom Found Bookstore. And I would literally, after school, I would go in the store and it blew my mind. I'm like, all this information, where's all this history been at all my life? And I would literally cut school sometimes and go sit in this bookstore all day long. And they literally would have to put me out. And so I started listening to the minister's tapes. And at that time, I didn't know if he was living or dead. I remember seeing the poster growing up. And so I asked the brothers, I'm like, is Minister Farrakhan alive? And they laughing. And they're like, yes, sir, he's alive. And they took me to Savior's Day, 1991, Who is God? And the rest is history. And even to this day, the 3 lectures that have stuck with me has been, of course, Who is God? Because that's the one when I saw him live and he moved me that day. I'm like, I want to know this man. I want to be with this man. I want to be a part of what he's doing. The lecture that he did in Atlanta, Add It Up. That is my all-time favorite one, because I was like, you got a bold man alive talking like this in America. I was 18 years old. Like, this is who and what I've been looking for all of my life.
Yes, sir.
Yes, and the other one was 3 Rules to Prove That There Is No God But Allah, Muhammad is His Messenger. Out of all of the lectures I've heard working over at the Final Call building when I was recording his audio tapes, those 3 lectures have been my all-time favorites because of what they did for me in my life. And now here is 28 years and a few months later, and I'm thankful to Allah, who came in the person of Master Farrakhan Muhammad, that was the foundation for the man that I am today. These teachings, the discipline of the Nation of Islam, all of that is responsible for the man that I am today and the man that I hope to become, for the father that I am and the father and grandfather that I hope to one day become.
Yes, sir. Wonderful. Thank you, sir. And brother, Walaikum Salam Naima, my sister's name says something like him. Brother Daniel says Walaikum Salam Alaikum. He said he went to Kenwood with you. Brother,
Yes, sir. Big Dan. Yes, sir. We was at Kenwood, and I as a matter of fact, one funny story I had when I was working at the bookstore, I had this red jacket with a big star and crescent on the back. And this was around the time when I was processing. Brother Daniel was already in the Nation. And he told me when he said, brother, you need to be careful wearing that jacket. Man, you got disciples around here. But Brother Daniel told me, he said, if you have any problem with anybody saying anything you about that jacket, you tell them to come see me. You one of my brothers. And if anybody got a problem with you, they got a problem with me.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Wonderful. Brother Amzi, can you repeat that third lecture? Because I got who's got added up, but the third one I never heard that before.
It was 3 rules to prove that there is no God but Allah, and Muhammad is his messenger.
Okay, yes, sir. Excellent.
Those 3.
Excellent. Okay, well, Brother Amzi, what just for everyone who's watching, I'd already had an appointment set up with you before you had a meeting with the minister.
Right. Yes, we've been trying to get this 3 weeks now.
Yes, sir. But the reason a lot of people are now interested or becoming more aware of who you are is because of the picture with you and the Most High Messiah Farrakhan with the Mason. I don't want to say is it wardrobe, is it garb? I don't know how to pronounce. Like, what do you call it?
Regalia.
Regalia, with the Mason regalia on. Could you please explain to us how that came about and what has been your journey into Masonry?
That particular meeting came about by several members in the Nation of Islam who are members of the Masonic Order.
Yes, sir.
Brother Marcus 2X in Baltimore in the mosque with Minister Carlos. The other brother, I forgot his name, right? And we were just talking about him earlier today. And Grandmaster Tony Hawkins out in California. And the 3 of them, each one of them were having conversations about honoring the minister. And so, if I'm not mistaken, Brother Marcus 2X in Baltimore, he reached out to Brother Don Enoch, and he facilitated the meeting that was going to take place. And Grandmaster Tony Hawkins, he called a brother named Chris Jackson that's in the lodge that I'm in here in Chicago to get him to invite some of the brothers from Chicago. And I was one of the names on that list. And that's how I ended up in the meeting. We knew about it a couple of weeks before, but we was waiting to get confirmation and finalize everything. And so when we got confirmation and the meeting was finalized, then I reached out to our Grand Master of my lodge here in Chicago, most works with St. John Grand Lodge. And I asked him about honoring the minister. And then I reached out to all of our Supreme Department heads. These are the men who run for my particular jurisdiction that run the country. And all of them like, well, listen, if you're going to meet the minister, we got to honor him as well. Because, some of them, this brother had been on the front line for us, and that would be the least that we can do. One brother told him, he said, he couldn't be there. And there was another degree and title that the minister was supposed to get, but I didn't have the authority to give it because the brother that was supposed to be there, he couldn't be there. But that is coming.
Wonderful.
So that's how the meeting also. Just all those brothers, those 3 brothers, and then some of us from Chicago and some other brothers got invited, and those that were there were those who could make it. Okay, yes, so I literally brought a big gym bag full of certificates and Masonic regalia for the minister.
Wonderful. Now, how was your journey into Masonry? How has that been? And how did it feel to have that be like, a crowning moment of that, the whole world seeing you?
I remember when I became a Mason in September of 1997 at a small lodge here in Chicago. Um, it's been an interesting journey over the last 22 years. Um, Sometimes it was received in the mosque well, sometimes it wasn't. But nevertheless, my grandfather is a Mason, my uncle is a Mason, and it was something that I was always interested in. And so I did it. Within my first year in the lodge, I would say I rose rather quickly because I'll just say this because my interest in it, but more so the teachings of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad allow us to look deeper into things. Mm-hmm. And for me, I've always been a student. I've always loved knowledge, and I would study for hours, the varying degrees that I had. And then when I got the opportunity to move into some of the upper degrees and offer that opportunity, I took that opportunity and continued to study. And then over the years, sometimes, the road got a little bumpy. I wasn't active for a few years in the Masonic Lodge. Then I became active in another lodge, and I haven't looked back. And the journey has not always been easy. Sometimes it's been easy. Sometimes it's been very rough and challenging. There's been days where I've had events and circumstances come up that literally brought me to tears. Mm-hmm. I've had people who I say I loved, who I've eaten in their homes, have turned on me for various reasons. Mm-hmm. So, but we were able to talk about it and resolve the issues and still be brothers. So it's been a lot of joy. It's been a lot of pain, but I am thankful to Allah for it all because it has helped me to be who and what I am today, and also to teach, the brothers that are coming up behind me some of the lessons that I've learned, some of those hard lessons that I've learned. It's also given me the opportunity to teach in different departments in Masonry, so to speak, different levels, because again, I enjoy it. And because of those circumstances, it's allowed me to look deeper into it and pull out a lot of those life lessons, because everything that we learn in Masonry is compatible to Islam, is compatible to Christianity, is compatible to Judaism, as long as you are able to apply it to your everyday life. And there's nothing that I have not learned in my 22 years of Masonry that I can't apply to my life, my everyday life. So I always tell the brothers that I'm not a Mason just when I come to the lodge. I'm a Mason every day. Yes, I'm a Muslim every day.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Not just when I go to the mosque. So it's a lifestyle. With anything that we're doing, it's a lifestyle.
Excellent. Speaking of masonry, did you tell, before we went live, you told me how you told the minister that you were your intentions to go into masonry. Could you please explain to us what that was like and how you felt letting him know that you were going to do that?
What I shared, to go back when I first became a Mason back in '97. At that time, your father was a Supreme Captain, and some people brought it to his attention, if I remember the story correct. And he and I talked about it, and some people in the mosque had an issue with it. Mm-hmm. For one of the stigmas that this is the secret society that runs the world. And I'm like, okay, really? I'm like, you don't have no Black Masons like that. So there's been a bad stigma on Masonry, although just as you have anything, you have people who corrupt it and use it for wrong purposes. Of course, that exists. It exists in religion as well. But when we went to the meeting that back in '97, when that came up, after we had that conversation during that time, I mean, your father supported me with the decision that I made. Brother, now the Assistant Supreme Captain, Brother Anthony, he defended me, and he's saying that, you know, this is his expression of Islam. Leave him alone. I stayed in it again. A few years I stepped away. But when we had the meeting last Saturday, I told the minister that I had a little apprehension coming, and it wasn't. I don't want to share in detail what I told him, why I was a little apprehensive or had some anxiety with it. But it wasn't because of Masonry itself. You know, I told him that I had some apprehension and a little anxiety that day because I didn't feel worthy of being there for several reasons that I shared with him. But I've always wanted to honor him.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
With this, we've had other individuals honor him, other organizations honor him, but I had never. He's spoken at Masonic lodges before. I know that other Masons have honored him in different capacities, but to honor him with what I was authorized and empowered to do, to me that was very special, and it was special because, in my humble opinion, he represents, the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan represents every principle that's taught in Masonry from the first degree that I know of all the way up to the 96th degree.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
He's a living embodiment of those principles. He's those principles in action. And I've had the opportunity to be around him in his home. I've had the opportunity over the last 27 years, to be around him in the public. And his public life and his private life are the same man that we see him being in the public, on the rostrum or in interviews. He's that same principled individual in private. Mm-hmm. So for me to honor him and to honor a man that has not been honored or publicly honored in this particular organization, this particular fraternity, for me, it was humbling. And it was an acknowledgement of him to me, saying, teacher, father, this is what I've been doing. And now I want to present this to you. It means a lot for a man who deserves it all and more.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So I prayed hard to Allah that morning before I got there, that he accepted the gifts and the honors that I was able to give to the minister. And I prayed that Allah put it in his heart to accept it, because I know who he is.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
And I would say, to a certain degree, I know his heart, and he's humbled by all of that. But it's just something small to give a man who's put his life on the line, not only for Black people, but on the line for humanity as a whole. It's a small gesture to some. It's a huge gesture to others, but he deserves that and more.
Absolutely. And thank you, Brother Amzi, for your work and for your transparency. All praise due to Allah from both of my sisters. Walaikum salam, Brother Michael. Brother Hakeem says Brother Amzi was the first brother I went on a detail with on a Sunday to a church last in memory. Brother Eric says, we in the PHA family have always revered and honored my leader, the minister. Brother Amzi, I was going to ask you okay, Brother Eric, I saw that. Boom. Can you please explain to us what exactly it's called that you presented to the minister? Okay,
I presented him degrees literally from the first to the 96. So Masonry is broken up into rites or divisions, so to speak. Exactly. So the foundation of it is called ancient craft masonry. That's the first through the third degree. That's the foundation of all masonry. Then a Mason has a choice. He can either go what's called the York Rite, which is more Christian based. He can either go to the Scottish Rite, which is more Hebraic and delves more into Eastern philosophies. So he has a choice to go up both of those. I went up both. Then from there, a Mason can then choose to get into what's called the mystic shrine, or we know as the shrine to see the brothers with the fezzes, the moon, the star, the sword. And then after that, there's the ancient and primitive rite. So we gave him in ancient craft masonry, we honored him as a master mason with all 3 degrees, the first 3. And as a past Grand Master, Most Worshipful St. John Grand Lodge, my current Grand Master, Brian K. Williams, authorized me to do that and also make him an honorary past Grand Master of our Grand Lodge.
Yes, sir.
And then from there, the brothers who run our national departments, Brother Michael Green Sr., he runs the General Grand chapter of Royal Ark Masons. He authorized me to make the minister a Royal Ark Mason, and also to honor him with what's called the anointed high priesthood degree. And it's an honorary degree going back to the high priesthood of Melchizedek. Then the next house in the York Rite, which is the cryptic degrees, our brother who runs our General Grand Council of Cryptic Masons, our Supreme Department, he authorized me to make the minister a cryptic mason, which consists of three degrees on that level. And then to make him an honorary past thrice illustrious master, then by me being over the state, I honored him even more by making him an honorary most illustrious Grand Master who sits over that degree of masonry.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
The brother named Kirk Washington, he sits over the General Grand Encampment of Knights Templar. So we honored him by making him a Knights Templar, as well as making him a past eminent commander.
Yes, sir.
That's the York Rite. Then on the Scottish Rite, our most puissant sovereign Grand Commander, who sits over the Universal Supreme Council of the Ancient Accepted Scottish Rite, he authorized me and another Grand Master named Carlos Smith that gave the minister all of the Scottish Rite degrees from the 4th to the 33rd.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
And him with 5 certificates, which is the first house, the Lodge of Perfection, the next house, the Chapter of the Rose Cross, the house above that, the Council of Kadash, then the consistory degrees, then his 33rd degree. And for the Mystic Shrine, ours is Saladin Imperial Grand Council. We made the minister honorary potentate, Grand Potentate.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
The highest degrees or highest body in Masonry, which is the ancient and primitive rite of Memphis Mizraim, our General Grand Hierophant, Weston Jarvis, who is a 97 degree Mason and sits over the Western Hemisphere, which is North and South America. He honored me to give the minister all of his degrees in the ancient and primitive rite. And they end at houses, which is the 43rd, which is a Knight Hermetic Philosopher, the 90th, which is a Perfect Pontiff, or Sublime Master, the Great Work, and then the 95th degree, which is a Patriarch Grand Conservative. And then the final honor was the 96th degree, which makes him a puissant sovereign of the order. And he also made him a honorary, most illustrious sovereign Grand Conservative General who sits over the country.
Praise be to God.
It was a lot, and it was, again, it was humbling, and he deserves it all. And I had a phone call with Brother Jarvis early the day before we got on, and all the brothers are still fired up. All the brothers who run those national departments, they want to meet the minister, so I have to write a letter on their behalf requesting a meeting for them with him on their behalf, because they want to sit with him, and I would love for him to meet them, because these are the men who over the last few years have been they played some very significant roles in my life. And all of them are older than me. I think me and Brother Jarvis are the same age, but they've been in Masonry much longer than I have, and have done a lot of great things in the country and internationally. And I would love for the minister, the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, to meet with those who authorized me to give him what he got, because they say they standing with the minister regardless to who come against us. Everything was right and exact, and he deserved it. If anybody got a problem with it, they can see them.
Hey, yes, sir. That's excellent, Rams. Man, thank you all for your comments. And Rams, I thank you for such a gesture that, man, that's just amazing. It's amazing. History. Yes, sir. Okay, I have a question.
Mm-hmm.
You spoke of somebody who earlier made me think about drill. Oh, when I saw some of your videos drilling with the Masons, and then I know you from drilling in the nation. What is it about the military drill that you like?
I was recording at that one. That was the drill team from Chicago, from our Grand Lodge. But the military drill for me in the Nation of Islam, the way we taught as FOI, the Fruit of Islam, that drill for me, it sparks that warrior spirit.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
For me, when I'm drilling, I'm in a zone. It's just me and whoever it is that's calling the cadence. For me, it's an opportunity for me to discipline myself. It's an opportunity for me to become one with that DI, that drill instructor.
Yes, sir.
That it was fun to me, and it still is fun to me. And me and Brother Terrell, we still laugh at it, because I think Terrell, when I first joined the Nation, Terrell used to be able to beat me, but he can't beat me anymore. Yes, as a matter of fact, I still have not been beaten yet in the FOI here in Chicago, and I'm always up to the challenge. But yeah, that military drill, it brings out that God spirit.
Yes, sir. Yes,
sir. And I love it. And I remember when I was first coming in the mosque, I would, watch the videos, and I would see Public Enemy, see the S1Ws drilling. And I didn't know at that time that these were FOI. Yes, sir. And so me and my brother, we learned the drill sequence that the S1Ws did in the video Fight the Power. We've learned the whole the sequence of Griff was calling it. And I remember I went to the mosque one day, and the task force, we had our meeting before FOI class. And I was drilling like that. And at the time, Brother Akeem, he got on me so bad. Brother, we don't drill like that. That's for sure. That's the S1W. We don't drill that fast. It's military, slow. And he slapped me in the chest. And I was just like, I was taken aback, like, what's going on? But from that day forward, even though that shocked me, it taught me that there's a proper way to do anything.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
There's a right way and a wrong way to do anything. So the military cadence, it's slow, but it's precise.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Everybody's head is moving at one time. Their knees are coming up at one time. They're making the turns at one time. Because when we're drilling, we all are in sync. We all are in unity. And we all are listening to the command of one voice.
Yes, sir.
It's a small way to teach discipline, but it's a small way to teach a spiritual principle of listening to one God and carrying out his instructions immediately with precision.
Praise be to Allah. Excellent. And thank you. I'm coming to you all's comments. 1 second. Brother Amzi, I got to stop for just a brief second to let you know that this podcast is brought to you by my sister Miriam's book, ABC, I Love Me, which is on Amazon. My brother, Rashad, Politically Oppressed, and Jamal, his business partner, street premiere of a video production company. Thank you all for your sponsorship. Also, my second book, which is a children's book, Cleopatra. It is on Amazon. Thank you all for your support. If you want me to sponsor your business, you got a business you want to sponsor and let me promote it, just let me know. J Imagination on Cash App. Okay, Brother Amzi. Speaking of, I got to read your comments. My brother, always challenging teachers. Wow. Thank you, Brother Khalif. Thank you, Brother Sister Katina. Assalamu alaikum. My sister Mimi said you should have stole off of him. Thank you, Mimi, for saying that. This is so beautiful. Thank you and the Masons for honoring our beautiful minister. Such a tremendous work. Thank you, Rashad. Thank you, brother. Daniel. Brother Amzi, speaking of the task force with drill, Could you explain to me what it was like being in the task force early in the early days, and once the task force, I guess, was disbanded? Could you explain to us how you felt, or what was the how was it back in those days?
The idea of the task force started back at the Final Call building with Brother Akeem, Brother Aaron, Brother Amir, just getting the young people in the nation working together. When I joined the nation, April, I recited to Brother Minister Ishmael here in Chicago, April 8th, 1991. And I had yet to be assigned to a squad. And I think it was maybe about the third or fourth week that I was in, Brother Akeem approached me. And from that day forward, I think that was maybe around May, I became a member of the task force. And that brotherhood, I had been, rolled with one of our youth organizations here in the city. But that brotherhood, and I was cool with friends that I grew up with, that I'm still tight with, supported me throughout my journey in the Nation of Islam. They've been to the mosque, came out to hear the minister. But the brotherhood in Islam, it was a little different. I would say that the requirements being in the task force saved my life, because we had to be at the mosque Monday, we had to be at the mosque on Wednesdays, we had to be at the mosque on Fridays, we had to be at the mosque on Sundays. We went out soldiering as a unit on Saturdays. So all of my time as an 18-year-old, as a teenager, I had my duties in the nation. I had my duties in the mosque. So I didn't have time for a lot of the activities as a teenager that we would get into. So FOI class was on Monday. We had to be at the mosque at 6 o'clock. We had our meeting. We started off with inspection. Then we drilled. Then we studied. Then we went and set up the mosque for the meeting. Then on Wednesday, we had to be at the mosque at 6 o'clock. So I'm in high school. Sometimes I get the opportunity to go home and change. And then it got to a point where the lieutenants in the task force, the captain, we had to, you wear your class A to school. And sometimes they would check. They came by the school and checked.
Okay.
So we would come straight to the mosque. So on Wednesdays, we had to be at the mosque at 6 o'clock. We started off with inspection. We drilled. We were drilled on the lessons. We were drilled on the general orders. We were drilled on some of the rules of Islam. Then after we studied, we went and set up the mosque. We were always there before everybody. On Fridays, we was at the mosque at 6 o'clock. We started off with inspection. Then we drilled. Then we drilled the lessons. We drilled the general orders. Then we drilled sometimes the rules of Islam. Then we went and set up the mosque. On Sunday, when the mosque meetings were still at 10, they started at, they were at 1 o'clock. We had to be at the mosque at 10, where we would go out fishing sometimes. We would come do we wouldn't drill as long because we didn't want to get sweaty on Sunday, because the mosque was ours. The sanctuary was ours. So at 10 o'clock, and I still remember our schedule like it was just yesterday. From 10 to 11, we would drill. Then we had a half an hour studies when we was getting into the Quran. We would get into the books. Then again, we would drill on the general orders, the rules of Islam. And we would go set up the mosque. Then when I became a lieutenant in the task force and a lieutenant in the mosque, I was there on Tuesdays. 7 o'clock for lieutenants meetings, and the task force was the meetings for the mosque. Then on Thursdays, that was our free day, so to speak. And we got the gym. So every Thursday, we would be up there playing basketball, drilling, whatever it was we were doing. We had a righteous environment that took us out of the world, where we could express ourselves as teenagers. I think the youngest person that I remember that was in the task force was Brother Marvin, and he was 14 at the time. Then you had some other young brothers that ran with us. They were 12 and 13. I think Marshawn at the time was maybe about 11 or 12. But the training that we got in the task force, and I'm not ashamed to say it, it has yet to be duplicated. And anyone that was in the task force, I think they will agree with me. And that was the foundation of our training, that for those of us who had transitioned onto the minister security team, it made it a little easier because of the training that we had. And of course, there were some negative things that happened in the task force that I speak about, but our training has yet to be duplicated. And what was produced in the task force has yet to be duplicated. As a squad, we went from 5,000 papers in one issue. That's when the papers coming out every 2 weeks, to 10,000. Then we went to 12,000. Then we jumped to 15,000. Then we hit that 20,000 mark. And at that time, I think it was 102, 103 of us that was on a roll for the task force. And during that time, we turned all the money in. If someone needed to keep their profit on the paper, we checked with the lieutenants or whatever, but we were trying to help our leader.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Push the word out there. I would say for me, it was never for any vain purposes or any pompous purposes. We wanted to be known as those young men who would hear the call and instructions of our leader, teacher, and guide, the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, and carry it out. So we started calling ourselves Farrakhan's Task Force. And we would go out soldiering as a unit. We would hit the entire city. We would go on the projects. We would go in some of those neighborhoods where other people wouldn't go. But we were never afraid, with our suits and our bow ties and our papers under our arms.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
We were in the high schools in the city. Some of us, we would visit churches, and we loved what we were doing. But you asked about when it was shut down. Some of without going into any minute details, we all come out of the world. Some of us were little boys, young men. You had to be in the task force. It was 18 to 26. I think at that time, the oldest were Brother Tim and Brother Akeem. But we all were young men. We were babies in Islam. And as we all know, that we're coming out of a world where all of us have been negatively affected. The minister has told stories. You've heard stories. I've heard stories about people being molested, people being strung out on drugs, alcoholics, prostitutes, whatever you can think of that ill affects our people in the world. We came into the mosque with those ills. And I would say a lot of the negative behaviors that a lot of the believers experience is because of those ills that we bring in with us. So whatever ills are in the world, they're still there present with us in the mosque, and we're struggling to clean up. So I would say some of what negatively affected us in the task force, it was because of those ills, child molestation. And some of those people never overcame that. And those ills started to affect the whole. And there's a lot of rumors about what happened in the task force with homosexuality. It was a squad of homosexuals. It's far from the truth, just as Pluto is from the sun. There were some incidents that happened with a few people that many of us didn't know about. There was one member that we found out was still selling drugs. Did we all know? No. Did we all try to cover him for that? No, because we didn't know. And the culminating incident that brought the full spotlight on us is when Brother Aaron committed suicide. And I remember when the minister did the lecture on a Wednesday night, the causes of suicide and homosexuality. He met with all of us at the palace, I think earlier that day before the lecture. And he said that he wanted to do a lecture for us. And after that lecture was over, he wanted us to write him. And as he was doing the lecture, when he started talking about brothers selling drugs, for me, I was sitting there like Brother Minister, and it took everything I had not to cry, because I didn't know. And a lot of the other incidents that took place, I didn't know. I later found out some of those who it affected. And some of those brothers were very close to me then and are still close to me now. But we're at a point where we're able to talk about it. And I remember in that lecture, he asked the nation to pray for us. And he asked the nation to help us. There were some who did help us and pray for us. But there are others who prayed on us and helped us to continue to fall. One of those greatest persons that helped us was Brother Wali Muhammad, formerly known as Brother Jack.
Yes, sir.
And it was during that time where he became a very close friend of mine, companion, a big brother, a father, and a spiritual mentor for me. And to this day, we're still close. I can feel him thinking about me and he can feel me thinking about him. Yes. And when he needs to, this morning, he called and fussed at me. Man, you were supposed to call me back. And I'm driving over to the cleaners. I'm literally in the truck with my head down. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. But he helped us. He prayed with us. He prayed for us. And there was other brothers who was on the E team at that time that helped us and that prayed us. But majority of the people that if I can remember did not. And some of that negative stigma still takes place. I've just 10, 15, 20 years later, people, man, I heard y'all was a squad. No, brother. No. And then I will say it like this to those who still, as the young folks say, try to throw a little hate around.
Yes, yes.
If we were that, do you mean to tell me you couldn't reproduce what a group of homosexuals did? Even though that's not the case, but that's in defense. So I'm thankful to Allah for those that helped us, those that prayed for us and with us. And I know that there's still talk when the young people try to get together now. Well, we already had that happen. You can't, it's wrong to put that on them. When the young people in the mosque don't know nothing about that, don't know anything about it.
Yes, sir.
So, but those in authority or in positions of influence, instead of them guiding them, no, y'all can't do this, because we had that before. Those issues plagued our people then in the early 90s, and those issues plague our people now and still exist. Our people are still coming up out of the mud, coming up out of the muck and the mire of the world and trying to come into the mosque to clean us up, to clean themselves up. So I would give this humble reflection now, 20-something years later. That set of circumstances that cast a negative light it's not just the task force history or that group of brothers, but in the nation's history.
Yes, sir.
Because you cannot separate the task force from the nation. That dark period in our nation's history, it's still, if we would take the time as believers, if we would take the time to dissect what happened, if we would take the time to take it apart like a puzzle and put it all together, we will be able to help not only the young people that are coming in the mosque, but the people who are older people who are in the mosque, because those ills still plague us. Women who've been molested by their brothers, molested by their fathers and uncles, even by female members of their family, men who have been raped and molested, children who have been raped and molested, those of us who have been addicted to drugs or addicted to alcoholism. It's a lesson in that to help save us inside the mosque. Mm-hmm. It's lessons in that on how to capture the youth, how to guide that spirit, that warrior spirit that's in the young people. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Because it's not happening. And if we be honest, it's not happening. It's happening in small areas around the nation, but as a whole, it's not happening like that.
Yes, sir.
Our young people are still 1 foot in, 1 foot out.
Yes, sir.
As you know, and those who are listening know, if they take the time to be honest with themselves. So there's lessons in that. So when the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan went to the Church of Scientology and got the technology
Yes, sir. Yes,
that was present there,
yes, sir.
a
Yes,
lot of people came against him in the nation and without. Oh, now he's taken us off course. He done threw the teachings away. No, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad teach us to respect and go find wisdom wherever we can find it. And I bear witness in my personal life.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
That the technology that's given in the Church of Scientology through Dianetics, that auditing, it works.
Yes, sir.
It's a healing.
Yes, sir.
And I'll give one specific example, then let you ask your next question. When I got divorced and the circumstances that surrounded my divorce, I couldn't talk to my ex-wife literally without my chest hurting. Literally without getting angry, because all of the emotions that led up to the divorce and how we handled that and how we were negatively handling one another, I couldn't talk to her without getting angry. But after I had, if I remember correctly, it was a 4-hour auditing session.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
From that day forward, I've been able to have conversations with her, even if they got heated, with no physical anxiety, no physical stress, and able to leave in peace, regardless to what that conversation was about. It was through that auditing that I was able to still love her and express that as the mother of my children. So I'm not angry at her. I'm not, I don't wish any ill feelings. Does she still make me mad? Yes, like all people do. But I'm able to look past all of that to see that she was just a damaged human being as I was. And really, as we all still are in the process of getting clean. So I know that it works. So I would humbly suggest that instead of shutting the young people down and pushing that off on them, guide them and work with them. Learn how to, well, I won't say learn how to, remember when we as adults were once children.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
How we wanted to be dealt with. Because as adults and we become parents, we forget that we were once children. We try to beat our children over the head. Well, you don't do that. No, we were once children, and our children make the same mistakes that we made. So there's a lot of lessons in it, man, that the nation can learn and any other organization can learn. And it was through that pain and those lessons that helped me to be a better, effective teacher,
Yes,
a better and more effective mentor, and even a better and more effective father, even though I still make mistakes. But I keep that and try to learn from those mistakes.
Okay, excellent. And thank you all coming to you all's comments. Thank you very much for watching. And Brother Amzi, everybody saying thank you for your transparency. The future generation, how can we, so you're saying Dianetics is, I've been witness to what Dianetics did to me. Oh my God, good for me in my personal life. So you think that we should just help, I guess, the youth get auditing to try to help them speak of things that in religious settings most people don't want to address, like sin and that kind of stuff. So
that's one avenue. That's one avenue that would speed up the healing process. But our young people just want to be heard.
Yes, sir.
In my classroom as a teacher, I used to shut class down, and we would just have conversations. Now, at all the schools I taught, the principals, some of the principals supported me, some of them didn't, and I ended up in meetings. But I knew, I mean, it's literally, Muhammad, you can't do that. You gotta, yeah. And I was like, yes, sir, yes, ma'am. Like, yeah, okay, watch this one, because I know what the young people want and I know what they need, and sometimes they just want to be heard. So I would shut class down and we would just have conversations, whatever it is that they wanted to talk about, however they needed to talk about it. And I'm like, you all, what happens in here, when we was said in here and happens in here, stays in here. At some of the schools that I taught at, the principals would be in there with us. We're just all men. And sometimes I would have the boys and the girls in it. Sometimes at one school I taught, it would be me and some of the girls sitting around. We kept the door open with the young ladies, and I'm still friends with their families. I'm invited to their homes during the holidays because they always say, Mr. Muhammad, you're the best teacher. Or their parents say, you are like a father to my child.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So our young people need that. They need someone to listen to them. They have a lot to say. They have a lot to offer. But as adults, we have to get out of their way, thinking that we're all holy and righteous when we did some of the same things that they did, and we still continue to do some of the things that we judge them for. Yes, some of us are still drinking. Some of us are still doing drugs. Some of us are still cheating on our husbands, cheating on our wives, got boyfriends and girlfriends. But we judge our young people for that. Young people for that. The dances that my parents used to do. They had a dance called the dog, and it was filthy. But they judged the young. Look at them juking and twerking. And I just be like, yeah, but y'all used to do the same thing.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So our young people, they're that chosen generation that the minister say. I like to believe that I'm still a part of that generation.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
That's what my spirit is. But they just want to be heard. They want to get all the pain out. They just need somebody to talk to and not judge them. They need to be in an environment where they can feel safe.
Absolutely.
To express that. I get children, my students, even young people in the nation. I can't tell my parents this, but Brother Amzi or Mr. Muhammad, I can talk to you about it.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
And I tell them, well, write your mama or your daddy a note. They can't argue with a letter. Just leave it on their bed and go to school. But you got to get it out. You got to get it out. But they need it. And I think that's absolutely necessary in the nation if we say that the nation is never going to fall again. We have to stop repeating the mistakes of the past. Absolutely. The only way that the nation is not going to fall, somebody or someone's going to have to stand up in the name of truth and in the name of what's right to say enough is enough.
Excellent. And I thank you very much. And thank you all for your comments. Brother Michael Muhammad says great insight, inspiration. Sister Miriam says thank you for your transparency. Brother Khalid, thank you, sir. Brother Laron, Rizzy Music Muhammad says, brother, you are touching my soul. Sister Katina says the discipline and training. Sister Shanika says beautiful. Brother Daniel says I bear witness. Brother Amzi, what has been your greatest joy in your tenure in the nation? And as a Mason, what has been your greatest joy?
I would say in the nation, my greatest joy, I would say being able to serve on the extended security team of the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan for those years that I did and I was allowed to. I never second guessed or second thought putting my life on the line for him.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
And even to this day, I would still willingly do that. Am I saying that I want to die? No, I know at some point in time I'm going to have to. I don't like to think about it. Yes, but that's something that I've always was and I'm always willing to do because I know who that man is, what he represents, and what he means and represents my life. He was my saving grace from the God.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Because I know coming up as a little boy, I was supposed to have been dead by the time I was 18, was 16. I made it to my 16th birthday. Hey, I'm not going to be dead by the time he's 18. I was in the Nation of Islam, my saving grace. He going to be dead by the time he was 21. I'm still in the Nation of Islam, my saving grace. Mm-hmm. So I think out of everything, I would say that is my most joyous and greatest achievement, just being able to serve him in that manner, protecting his life. In Masonry, I would say, I became a Mason in 1997. I would say my greatest achievement was what happened Saturday.
Yes, sir.
Because now, and I'll use this analogy, it was like the prodigal son coming home to me.
Yes,
And
sir.
I know how the brothers that were there on post, how they welcomed me. They never stopped being brothers to me. They never stopped being friends to me throughout whatever it was I was going through, whether I was active in the mosque or wasn't active in the mosque. I know if I needed something, I can call on any of them that was in the palace that day.
Yes, sir.
I
Yes, sir.
thank again, Brother Khalid, now formerly Brother Duro, Brother Wazir, formerly Donald, Brother Fontaine, Brother Haroon, Brother Sultan, Brother Hassan, all the brothers that were there, Brother Omar, they never stopped being brothers to me and always encouraged me to continue to be a Muslim, to be a better Muslim. They would always give me words that our leader, teacher, and guide said, because that's what a Muslim is. When we see a brother down or maybe off the path, we don't judge them. We give them that word and give them that nudge to bring them back.
Yes, sir.
They've
Yes, sir.
always been to me. So when I walked in there and I had one case in one hand and a big bag in another, and they joked and laughed at the door. And I remember Brother Wazir was like, "What's your name, brother? You're not on this." And I joked, "It's Earl Jackson." He said, "You on, let's go." And we laughed about it. So it was never, the spirit was love, was like, man, Zai, welcome back home.
Yes,
And
sir.
then the spirit that the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, I remember Don Enoch, and he was introducing everybody. And he was like, and you know, Brother Amzi Muhammad, and the minister looked at me. He was smiling. He just looked at me. And he was still smiling, like, yes. And if I recall correctly, I shared with him that I wasn't active the way that I used to be. But he was like, brother, he said, that's okay. We'll take care of all of that. It's okay.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Because for me, I've never turned my back on the teachings of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. The teachings is still my way of life.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
That's my foundation, regardless to whatever I'm doing. When I go to the lodge, they don't say Brother Amzi, it's Brother Muhammad. When I introduce people, it's Brother Muhammad. When I do my youth program, it's not Brother Amzi, it's Brother Muhammad. Because for me, Muhammad lives forever. Amzi is going to die.
Yes,
So
sir.
I want them to know the name Muhammad. And if you want Brother Amzi Muhammad, that's fine. But I always go as Brother Muhammad. So that day, so that was my greatest achievement in the nation, being able to serve him. And then my greatest achievement as a Mason was to give him back and honor him with that which I've learned and that which I've taught people about, the teachings of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad.
Excellent. Okay, wonderful. And I see you all's comments. Perhaps I just got a few more questions.
Sure. I got as much time as you got.
Yes, sir. 1 second. Hold on. Let me keep this charger going. 1 second. Okay, perhaps quick question. So, what has been your greatest trial within the nation and within Masonry? And how did you overcome those trials?
I would say that in the nation, my greatest trial has been dealing with, in hindsight, I could say envy and jealousy, or whatever title we want to put on it. There were times when I withstood it strong, was able to brush it off. And there was other times when I couldn't. Mm-hmm. And just a few years ago, there was an incident that took place at FOI class that I knew if I had not walked away, someone would have got hurt. Mm-hmm. And there were brothers that was around who saw what was going on but did nothing. Mm-hmm. They had the opportunity to say something, to straighten it out. They had the opportunity to correct the brother who was being disrespectful to me. Mm-hmm. and they stood by and said nothing. But I knew at that moment, if I had did the first thought that came to my mind, somebody would have ended up hurt. And that was that day. I tried to come back to the mosque a couple other times, but I wasn't allowed on the property. But I wasn't necessarily in bad standing because I had to have a meeting. And it was said that I put my hands on this lieutenant when all I did was move his finger out of my face twice. And there was two other brothers who stood there and said nothing and allowed it to happen. And one of them said, well, later, and I talked to him about, well, what did you expect me to do? Be a Muslim and tell that lieutenant you're wrong. So the story went that I put my hands on a lieutenant when all I did was move his hand out of my face and told him he's a man just like I am. I didn't disrespect him, and I wasn't going to allow him to disrespect me. And I walked away. He followed me out the mosque, calling my name, and I just threw up two fingers behind my head like I'm out. Because what would have happened? There would have been an incident. And I did not want my name going down in the mosque as an incident, a fight, and somebody spinning a story the way they did. So I decided to walk away that day. So I tried to come back a couple of times when the minister called for believers meetings. Let all the believers in. But they didn't let Amzi in. So I said, fine. So last summer, I was called to come back, and I didn't, because my heart wasn't in the right place, because I told the brother who reached out to me that if I was going to do that, then a meeting needs to happen first with me and that brother who was in authority. Before I came back, we needed to have a meeting because the air still wasn't clear between us, and he was still in authority at that time. That meeting never was set up. So, but I thank Allah, who came in the person of Master Farrakhan Muhammad and his Christ, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, and they're warning in our midst. I'll be back, inshallah, soon, very soon, because my father cleared the air.
Excellent. And my sister Mimi says, sometimes you have to step away to save a life and preserve your peace of mind. Islam is within you forever. Now that they feel goofy after Saturday. And I think the same thing, Brother Amzi. When I hear your story and the story of many of the people, young brothers from your generation who have gone on to do great things, it sounds, but who had to overcome adversity in your time period, it sounds a lot like the Central Park 5 situation where it was unjust, but the media, like everybody, like turned on them. But now you see them walking down the street, people like, hey, I know you, all because of a movie. Right. It's the same thing with the picture with the minister. Everybody's like, oh, we love you, Brother Amzi. I see you doing big things. You know what I'm saying? You with the chief.
See, but here's the thing. Some of those in authority knew what I was doing. When I had my mentoring program, I was offering jobs to the believers. Sister Mariam here in Chicago, Brother Terrell's wife, can bear witness. I employed her. She made some good money working with me. At that time, I was paying $25 an hour. When I gave her a contract, she made almost $5,000. That was just her outside of something else. But they knew what I was doing in the mosque, active in different organizations with my youth program, and even as a Mason. I didn't hide anything because I wasn't doing anything that conflicted with my religion or the principles as taught in the teachings of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. It wasn't new, but I don't want to use this format for that because it's not that. I still love all of them because we all are like used cars. We got a little work to be done. But the same thing, I encountered the same thing in Masonry. I rose in Masonry fast, again, because of the teachings and the disciplinary code of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad and the training that I received in the FOI. So I rose fast. And a lot of brothers didn't like that. Some brothers said that, Masonry, this is for Christians, when Masonry is for all who believe in God, regardless of faith tradition. You just can't be an atheist, but you can profess any religion to be a Mason. So I encountered a lot of that. I've been suspended out of a lodge before, and I came back. And just recently, over the last few years, there was a brother who was very dear to me because I couldn't answer a question that he asked me. He questioned my whole Masonic career. And next thing I know, phone calls went around the city, around the country. Then next thing I know, I'm not a Mason. When I was installed as Grand Master by what's called a President General, who was over a whole Masonic Congress for the country. I've sat in ancient craft masonry in all the positions in the lodge. And people knew about that. But because of one little phone call, and the minister vindicated me, and I thank Allah for that, on Saturday. So my travels have been the same. And I always try to look back at myself to see any role that I have to play, that I played in that. And I asked the minister that question in reflection so that he can give me insight on that. But he gave me some insight and he gave me some instructions. And I'm going to try my best to carry out my instructions to the best of my ability with the help and guidance of Allah.
Praise be to Allah. Okay, I just got 3 more questions, Rams. I want to just read the comments. There's no God but Allah, period. Brother Khalif, all praises to Allah, Mimi, Naima, Cloud Chasers. Brother Ronald, talk about these fake brothers who are holding the back. Thank you, Brother Ronald. Brother LaRon, real nation life testimony from a soldier. Thank you, Brother LaRon. Brother Khalif. Okay, here we go. We're working on it. Brother Amzi, this is a more light question, but a question that I know since I've known you. Your fashion. Who put you on how to dress the way you used to wear the lambskin coat with the wool and all of that? You know what I'm saying? Where did you get your sense of fashion from, Amzi?
Again, growing up in the projects, there was always a group of brothers that I always looked up to, and there was always some sharp dressers. And then my cousin Duran, as a young man, he had his little dress shirts and his slacks with what I call the butter cutter creases in them shoes was all shine. So there was always men that I could point to say that's how a man is supposed to look. That's how a man is supposed to dress. My best friend's big brother, Johnny Hunter, we called him Pookie Wan. And so I grew up trying to emulate them. Then when I got in the nation, the training, and I got in the FOI, that took it to a completely another level. So my style, my fashion is a combination of watching certain men growing up I could see that were in my life, and the training that I got in the FOI. This is how you should always be. Pants pressed, shoes shine, collars clean, put on a tie. So when people say, man, Muhammad, you dressed up, wearing a suit to me is not dressed up. I just like wearing suits because that's the way a man should present himself. And if I'm not in the suit, my pants are not sagging. My pants are still pulled up. I still wear a t-shirt under my t-shirts to catch the sweat because that's my training.
Yes.
So I still iron my shirts. I mean, that's my training in the FOI. So, and I'm always trying to look for something better. There's many brothers in the nation who taught me on how to dress. I mean, I can just run names down, but again, growing up, seeing those men in the community, but my training in the Nation of Islam, it's second to none. It is the most valuable knowledge that I possess. And whenever I go back to read my lessons or the books, I always see something different.
Wonderful. Okay, so 2 more questions. One more question is, you earlier, you spoke of Brother Aaron. When you reflect on that, could you just tell some of the good, like there's a whole generation who doesn't know anything about Brother Aaron except that
Okay. Brother Aaron, well, we called him Captain Aaron. He was the captain of the task force. Hakeem was the minister. We all were, certain ones were lieutenants. Aaron heard Mike. They were the brains that produced the NOISA, or the Nation of Islam Student Association, with Brother Amin here in Chicago when he was formerly Kendall. I think it was in one of the Carolinas.
Okay, yes, sir.
What they did, Aaron spearheaded that and took our training that we had in the task force, and they came up with the first bylaws and all that for the NOISA. That's a product of the task force.
Mm-hmm.
And Aaron was a good-hearted, light-spirited brother who loved Islam.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
He was a trainer of men. He was a friend to me. I remember when he gave me a shirt, because I went and got a shirt from the secondhand store my first year in the mosque, suits and everything. And my shirt was dirty that day. I didn't get a chance to wash it. And he went to his home and gave me a shirt.
Mm-hmm.
And I pressed the hell out of that shirt every day that I wore. But Aaron was a Muslim, and he was an example for any Muslim, regardless to what people say, regardless to whatever negative that happened. And it's only speculation, because the truth of everything that happened has yet to come out, but it will come out. Aaron was and still is an example for any Muslim, any young man coming in the Nation of Islam with conviction and purpose. He would be a definition of discipline. He would be a definition of conviction. He would be a definition for Muslim. He was one of those who taught me how to pray as well. He was one of those who taught me how to dress. He was one of those who taught me how to respect my elders.
Yeah, yes,
I love them and will ever love him. And if anybody say anything negative about him, I'm going at him. It's always been Brother Aaron. That was my captain.
Okay, excellent. Yes, sir. Okay, wonderful. Because I mean, I was young when I saw him growing up, so all I know is positive stuff too. So I just wanted to, hear somebody who's actually, in his peer group.
And he comes from a wonderful family of Muslims. Our Captain Salim Muhammad, Sister Celestina Muhammad.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Praise be to Allah. My sister Miriam says true brotherhood. Brother Daniel says Columbia, South Carolina. Brother Ronald says, how can we get the truth and who's keeping it?
I would say this. On that particular incident, that's in Allah's hand. And it's going to come out one way or the other. And it's nothing that we have to push buttons or press anymore on, because there are lessons in that. And the minister talked about that. And I remember Brother Salim told me when he talked to the minister about it, he told me that the minister told him when he go back to see the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, that was one of the questions that he was going to ask him. Why did that have to happen? And why did that have to happen to Brother Aaron? That's what Brother Salim told me, and I don't think he would have a reason to lie. So to that brother who just asked that question, again, if Allah chooses for it to come out, and I think that there will be some conversation about it at some point in time, because it's coming full circle now, because the young people in the mosque are dealing with those same issues. It's going to come full circle. And you have those that are still active in the nation who survived and can teach some very valuable lessons. So if it's Allah's will, it will come up. If it's not, then that's his will as well. But that doesn't negate the fact that our young people in the mosque are still dealing with those same issues that we dealt with 20 years ago.
Absolutely.
And it's going to have to be addressed one way or the other.
Praise be to Allah. Okay, and thank you, Brother Ronald, Brother Daniel, thank you all, Brother Khalif, everyone in the comments, and you all for your question. Brother Amzi, our last question. First of all, I want to thank you for your transparency, your genuine kind-heartedness and love to me and my family for all these years on behalf of myself and my family. What do you want? And thank your family for their sacrifice as well, your daughters as well. What do you want your legacy to be, Brother Amzi?
excuse me, I want my legacy to be one of service, one of denying myself for the greater good. And anyone who knows me, they know I'm always denying myself. They know that I'm always falling on my sword to help others. At all the schools that I taught, I always sacrifice myself, my pocket, my time, even with my children, to help others, to be that big brother, to be that father, to be that uncle, to be that listening ear in the mosque, just to be that brother in masonry, to be that brother, to help those who need the help. I want my legacy to be a legacy of honor and a legacy of service.
Praise be to Allah. And
that's it.
This is a legendary interview. We're gonna put it on YouTube. Like, subscribe, share. Off the record, Brother Amzi Muhammad, Brother Joshua Muhammad. Thank you all. Love you, Brother Amzi, and love your family as well.
Love you as well, Brother Joshua. Thank you for allowing me to be on your show, and I pray to Allah that you continue the work that you're doing. Those that you choose or reach out to be on your show, they're able to share their experiences. And I hope and pray to Allah that something that I said spark some life or move the heart of whoever was listening to be better, because that's all that I want. And that's why I said you can ask any question. I'm an open book, because I use my life as lessons for others in everything that I do. So there's some things, of course, that I have to be mindful with sharing or how it's shared, but I'm an open book. And I believe that all the experiences that we have in life, we are obligated to learn from those experiences and obligated to help someone else who may be in similar situations to overcome those. So thank you for your questions, and thank the listening audience for their questions. I love you all. Brother Joshua, I love you. Give your mother and your father the greetings.
Yes, I will.
For me, sisters, tell everybody I love them. And all of you all, keep up the good work. Muslims, we got work to do.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Because Saturday, we all are on the front lines now to defend our people and to defend the truth and defend what's right. As he said, we at the end, so our work has increased. And we have to be diligent and stay on guard right now. So again, Brother Joshua, thank you very much for this opportunity. I greatly appreciate it and will cherish it.
Thank you very much. Assalamu alaikum, Ramza.
Wa alaikum salam.